Welcome to Comcoding, the weekly cybersecurity show, where we try to cut through the noise and bring you the news and stories that really matter. Today, we're going to look at some recent cybersecurity incidents. They really shine a light on common attack methods, how cybercriminals are changing tactics, and, well, the ongoing challenges we all face, both organizations and individuals.
That's right. We'll be covering quite a range. Think supply chain vulnerabilities hitting big names like retailers and airlines, some new malware that exploits common software in clever ways, and also the really complex world of ransomware and how governments are trying to respond. The goal here is to pull out the key insights, the practical lessons for you so you can, stay ahead or at least stay aware.
Okay, let's unpack this first big theme then. It's a great example of how even really strong defenses can be bypassed if the weakest link isn't secure. We're talking about that cyberattack that hit Marks and Spencer recently.
Yeah, and what's really important to grasp here is that M&S itself, their core systems, weren't directly breached. The way in, it was a third-party supplier. It just hammers home this growing threat of third-party risk. Your security is only as strong as your least secure partner, really.
And the impact was just huge, wasn't it? This wasn't some minor glitch. We're talking a calculated operation, multi-stage by that group Scattered Spider, right? It caused massive disruption, shut down parts of their operation, and wiped, what, hundreds of millions off their market value?
Exactly. The estimates are pretty staggering. Around a 300 million hit to operating profits, and over 750 million gone for market capitalization. It's a massive blow.
Wow.
And, the thing is, this wasn't just a technical failure. It was deeply human. It hinged on social engineering. The attackers used sophisticated phishing, basically tricking the supplier's IT people into resetting credentials, giving away the keys, essentially.
And that lines up with what the FBI often says, right?
Yeah.
That email is the starting point for so many of these attacks.
For something like 90% of phishing incidents, yeah. It just shows how effective targeting people still is.
Which actually connects really neatly to another story, the lawsuit Clorox filed against Cognizant, their IT provider.
It does, yeah. Clorox is claiming that Cognizant's service desk essentially gave away passwords and, crucially, MFA recovery details, multi-factor authentication. They allege Cognizant didn't follow proper ID checks and that this directly enabled a ransomware attack back in 2023 that cost Clorox millions.
So the attackers got access, and then what? They just ran riot.
Pretty much. They got in, they reset the MFA tokens for secure accounts, changed phone numbers used for SMS verification, turned off security tools, and then stole sensitive files before launching the ransomware. It forced Clorox to shut down systems, go back to manual processing for weeks. Huge disruption. Now they're seeking, $49 million in direct damages, $380 million total.
That lawsuit against Cognizant, it feels like it could be a big deal. Does it signal maybe a shift? Like IT providers being held more directly responsible when their client gets breached, even if the attack wasn't on their systems initially?
That's a really interesting question. It potentially could, yes. It moves beyond just negligence, maybe, into this complex area of shared cyber risk in these interconnected ecosystems. For companies, it means you need constant oversight of your partners, really clear rules about access, and you need to treat cyber assurance for suppliers not as a tick box exercise, but as this continuous process.
So the perimeter isn't just your own walls anymore.
Exactly. It extends out to every single person in your supply chain. The M&S and Clorox cases both shout this loud and clear. It's not just about software flaws anymore. It's about exploiting trust, exploiting operational pressures. And for everyone, companies and individuals, it just reinforces. Vigilance against social engineering, plus strong technical defenses like MFA, they're absolutely non-negotiable. Remember that stat from Microsoft on the M&S breach?
Yeah.
99% of the compromised accounts didn't have MFA enabled.
99%. That's almost unbelievable.
It's chilling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shows you where the low-hanging fruit often is.
And we even saw hints of this human or maybe supply chain element potentially in the aviation sector, too. Alaska Airlines grounding all their flights because of an IT outage. No official cause given, but there was speculation, right? Maybe Scattered Spider, again, the M&S group, they seem to be targeting airlines.
Yeah, there were signs pointing that way, and they have been linked to targeting Qantas, Air Serbia, WestJet. But even if it wasn't them specifically, taking a step back, it just shows how interconnected everything is, especially critical infrastructure. One failure point, human or technical, can just cascade through the whole system.
Okay, so the human element, supply chains, clearly massive issues. But let's shift gears a bit. Beyond that, we're seeing some really nasty new attack methods cropping up, like the FBI warning about this new ransomware group, Interlock.
Yes, Interlock. They're financially motivated, first spotted around September 2024, so quite new. And they're already hitting businesses and critical infrastructure in North America and Europe. They use that classic double extortion playbook. Steal your data first, then encrypt your systems, then threaten to leak the data on the dark web if you don't pay up, often with a really tight deadline, like 96 hours.
And they have a whole toolkit to get in, don't they? Drive-by downloads, fake software updates.
A whole range of tools for initial access and then moving laterally spreading across the network once they're inside.
Huh.
The FBI also mentioned potential overlaps with another group, Reseda.
So against a group like Interlock, what are the key defenses? What stands out?
Well, it really emphasizes the need for layers. You need the basics done right, patching everything diligently, using DNS filtering to block bad sites, web application firewalls, but then also enforcing MAK everywhere possible. Strong access controls who can access what. Network segmentation is huge to limit that lateral movement if they do get in. And deploying good endpoint detection and response EDR tools, especially on virtual machines, which are often targeted. And, absolutely critically, rock-solid backup and recovery plans with offline, or even better, immutable backups, ones that can't be changed or deleted by attackers. And you have to test those backups regularly, make sure they actually work.
Right. The best backup is useless if it doesn't restore.
Exactly.
Now, talking about inventive threats, there's this banking Trojan, Coyote. It's evolved in a really disturbing way using Windows accessibility tools.
Yeah, this is quite a clever and concerning development. Coyote isn't just logging keystrokes, it's actually abusing Microsoft's UI automation framework. That's a system meant for accessibility, like screen readers for visually impaired users. Coyote uses it to detect when you open specific banking or crypto websites.
How does it do that?
It can essentially read the web address bar and the elements on the screen buttons, text fields. It compares what it sees against a list of, I think, 75 target services. If it finds a match, it can then grab your login details directly from the interface as you type them, or maybe even automate actions. It's like it's looking over your shoulder and interacting with the page.
Wow. That's pretty scary. Mostly targeting Brazilian users for now.
Primarily, yes.
Yeah.
Banco do or Brazil, Binance, services like that have been on its list. But the technique itself could obviously be adapted.
And it's not just the malware getting smarter. AI is making old threats feel new again. Like phishing. We saw that with the Paddy Power and Betfair data breach, right? Affecting 800,000 users.
That's a great example. Now, in that specific breach, passwords and payment details weren't exposed, thankfully. But IP addresses, email addresses, online activity like betting history were compromised. And that data is absolute gold for crafting targeted phishing attacks.
Because AI can make them super convincing now.
Exactly. AI can generate emails or messages that are incredibly personalized, grammatically perfect, formatted professionally, maybe referencing your actual betting patterns. Much harder to spot than the old clumsy attempts. The advice is still the same, though. If it looks too good to be true, if it creates urgency, be suspicious. It's probably a fraudster. Antivirus helps, but it's not enough on its own. You need that layered approach, including your own skepticism.
Because the AI is designed to bypass the tech filters and fool you.
Precisely. It targets the human.
And we're seeing innovation in e-commerce attacks, too, like these Magcart-style attacks hitting open cart sites.
Yes, that's another evolving threat. Attackers are injecting malicious JavaScript into websites, often hiding it cleverly amongst legitimate tracking scripts like Google Tag Manager or Metapixel. This hidden code then waits until you get to the checkout page and dynamically creates a fake credit card form that looks perfectly real. It captures your details as you type them.
And sends them off immediately.
Sends them straight to the attacker's command and control servers. But what's particularly tricky here is a trend they've noticed. A long delay, sometimes months, between the theft of the card data and its actual fraudulent use.
Why the delay? To avoid detection?
Probably. It makes it much harder for standard fraud detection systems to link the eventual fraud back to the initial breach point. It means e-commerce sites, even small ones, really need continuous real-time monitoring and good threat intelligence. You can't just look for immediate problems.
Okay, so the scale of all this, the impact, it's no surprise governments are stepping in more. Like the UK looking at banning ransomware payments for some organizations.
Yeah, that's a big policy debate happening right now. The core question is, will banning payments actually stop the criminals? Or will it just hurt the victims more, leaving them unable to recover critical systems? The UK proposal specifically targets public bodies, the NHS, councils, schools. The idea is to remove the financial incentive for attackers targeting these essential services.
Because the costs are huge, not just financially, but in terms of disruption. Like that awful NHS hospital attack.
Exactly, where disruption tragically contributed to a patient's death. That highlights the real-world stakes. Ransomware costs the UK economy millions, maybe billions. This ban is an attempt to break the business model of ransomware as a service.
And private companies, if they do decide to pay, they'd have to notify the government first.
That's the proposal, yes. They'd have to report their intent to pay and would get advice, especially on the legal risks, like potentially paying a group that's under international sanctions.
It's a bold move, trying to tackle that whole industry.
It is. But alongside these policy debates and the external threats, there are also these fundamental technical challenges bubbling under the surface, like that Microsoft Secure Boot issue potentially affecting Linux users.
Right, that signing key expiring next year. It sounds very technical, but what's the actual risk? Is it just an annoyance or something more serious?
It could be quite serious for some.
Mm-hmm.
Secure Boot is really important. It checks that only trusted software loads when your computer starts up. It blocks nasty stuff like bootkits, malware that loads even before your main operating system.
Okay, so it's a foundational security feature.
Definitely. The problem is this specific Microsoft key, used by many Linux versions to be trusted by Secure Boot, expires September 11th, 2025. And many systems aren't ready for the replacement key yet. So what could happen? Well, Linux might fail to boot securely, or maybe fail to boot at all. Users might be forced to disable Secure Boot entirely, losing that protection, or face really complex manual firmware updates.
Which most people won't do.
Probably not. It's a reminder of the constant upkeep needed in our digital infrastructure. One expiring key can cause widespread problems.
And speaking of upkeep, that brings us to Windows 11 migration. It feels like many businesses are really lagging on this, even with the Windows 10 end of support deadline looming.
Yeah, that's a major headache for a lot of organizations. There was a Panasonic report recently found nearly two-thirds of devices out there need replacing or upgrading to even run Windows 11 properly. It's even higher, like 76% for bigger companies.
Wow, two-thirds or more.
Mm-hmm. And while almost everyone, like 94% of businesses, say they're worried about increased security risks like ransomware if they don't upgrade from Windows 10.
They're also worried about the migration itself.
Exactly. Worries about the cost, software compatibility problems, losing productivity while systems are down for the upgrade. It's a tricky balancing act.
But staying on Windows 10 after support ends isn't cheap either, is it? Those extended security updates from Microsoft can really add up.
Oh, absolutely. The potential cost is significant, maybe £320,000 over 3 years for just 1,000 devices, based on estimates.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for just keeping the lights on for an old OS.
So it forces this difficult question, doesn't it? How do you balance that immediate cost and disruption of upgrading against the long-term risks and the benefits of moving forward?
That's the core challenge. The benefits are their better performance, supposedly a more future-proof system, access to new features like Microsoft Copilot, which are becoming more integrated. But that window for doing it properly in a planned way is closing fast, a rushed upgrade at the last minute. That often introduces its own set of problems and risks. It really needs strategic focus now.
So we've covered a lot today: supply chains, human error, new malware, ransomware, policy, technical debt. Bringing it all together, what's the main takeaway for someone listening, whether they're managing a huge network or just their own phone and laptop?
I think the biggest takeaway really is that cybersecurity just isn't an IT department problem anymore. It hasn't been for a while, but these incidents really drive it home. It's absolutely fundamental to business survival, business resilience, and frankly, personal safety online. All these attacks we talk about, the social engineering, the clever malware, the ransomware tactics, they all point to the same things. You need constant vigilance, you need strong basics like MFA and network segmentation if you're a business, and you need a culture of security awareness everywhere, at every level.
These aren't just abstract news stories, they're real lessons we need to learn from.
They really are. It feels like a relentless game of catch-up sometimes.
Yeah, but being proactive, understanding these evolving threats, that genuinely makes a difference, right?
It absolutely does. I suppose the big question hanging over all of this is, how fast can we all adapt our defenses? Because the attackers, they're innovating incredibly quickly, using psychology, using AI, using every tool they can find. And that makes yesterday's security posture, yesterday's infrastructure, a potential liability today.
That is a powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this week's program on calm coding. We'll be back next week with more cybersecurity insights to help you navigate this complex digital world. Stay safe out there.